Welcome back to another episode of the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Help us spread awareness for men's mental health and the gospel of Jesus Christ by ringing the bell and subscribing to the channel. Back to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Steve. And for the first time in this young podcast career, I was stood up tonight. I had a guest lined up that I booked probably about 2 months ago, and they didn't show up. Lost communication over the past couple weeks. So, unfortunately that episode didn't happen tonight. I thought what I would do is express my gratitude for all the support that this podcast has received over the last several months. For those of you new to the podcast, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel and help us spread the word for men's mental health, which is the foundation of this podcast. So I started in the summer of this year on a new journey. I rebranded a podcast that I had started over a year ago with another man that just kind of fell apart because he decided to go a different way. So I rebranded the show, renamed it, and my first guest that I brought on was in the summer, and the guest was Jason Feezer. He is a pastor out of Arizona. And Jason, I just want to say thank you, because after we did our episode, it kind of gave me the focus and the direction that I needed to go in and what I really wanted to do with this show. My goal is to spread awareness for men's mental health, because it's not a topic that we hear a lot about nowadays, but I also wanted to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. So after my conversation with Jason, it kind of inspired me to have enough courage to talk about the Lord in different episodes. So like I said, tonight is more about gratitude. This is going to be a short episode, but I felt compelled to do this episode and just express my appreciation for all the support that I've received so far with this show. So I want to read a verse, and then I want to cover some of the guests that I've had over the course of the last several months. The verse of the day today is from Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. Always be filled with joy in the Lord. I will say it again, be filled with joy. This show brings me joy because I know that it is actually helping people, that it actually is reaching people that I will never meet face to face. It's inspiring men that may not have the courage to, or may not have had the courage in the past to ask for help. And it's also showing men out there that it's okay to be sad, to be depressed, to go through trials, to have had childhood trauma, to have faced addiction. And I think it really shows that there's no way that any of us are ever going to be perfect. And it's okay if you need help, if you need to lean on people. We're not designed to be alone. And I've said that before on this show. We need other men in our lives that we can lean on, that we can rely on. And as I've kind of gone through this journey, the guests that I brought on this show, I've developed friendships. The word brotherhood gets thrown around a lot, but it really is a brotherhood, because, I'm not only building friendships, but I'm building long lasting friendships that are inspiring other people through testimonies that are on the show, through life experience, and also, reliving and recounting different experiences that they've gone through that some of the listeners might be able to relate to. So I just want to go through real fast, and I want to say thank you to every guest that I've had on this show. And it's not going to take long because this show is still new. But like I said before, Jason was the first guest that I had. After him, I had Travis Sparks. Travis is a law enforcement officer in Georgia. He came on and shared his testimony. Travis and I have developed a really good friendship through the course of this podcast, and I'm grateful for him. After Travis, I had Ethan Clay. He's also known as the War Priest on Instagram. Ethan and I have also developed a pretty good friendship. He actually designed the logo for this show, so I'm really grateful for him. After Ethan, I had CJ Cowie on, also known as the Fit Preacher out of Arizona. He came on and delivered a powerful testimony and just really talked about how much God has inspired him in his life and his journey, and the trauma and the healing that he's gone through. So that was a great episode, and I'm grateful for his friendship. After CJ, I had my bro, Joe Thompson, who I actually just got off the phone with. Joe came on and he gave his testimony. Joe spent time in the Navy. He's worked as a death investigator, worked for the coroner's office. So he had a unique perspective on life. And before we did our episode, his mother passed away, but he still had the courage to come on and do the podcast. And he has actually shared with me a lot of testimonies from friends in his life that have actually watched his episode and that's inspired them. So that alone just shows that people are seeking the Lord. They're seeking help and learning more about mental health and how important it is. So Joe, thank you for coming on the show. After Joe, I had Ben from Relentless Positivity. Ben came on and shared his testimony. He's got a huge presence on TikTok, so I highly encourage you to go over to his channel on TikTok, and he does a verse of the day every single day from the Bible. And through Ben, I met a guy named Joe, who is the host of the Uncrowned podcast. Joe came on my show and then I went on his show. So we kind of did a crossover episode and he shared his testimony. He's doing a lot of good things and he's right outside of Chicago. So a lot of these guys aren't local. I'm in Tennessee. If you're new to the show, I'm close to Nashville, and most of the guests that I've had are out of state and they're not people I know in person. After Ben, I had Colby, he's also known as the biblical operator. Colby is a full-time police officer. And one of the things about Colby that stood out to me, he street preaches. He goes out and he reads from the Bible and he preaches the gospel on the street. And I just think that is very inspirational, because I know for me personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. And so it was really cool to meet an individual that has that amount of courage to go out and do that. But he also spent time in the Army. He's a combat veteran, so he shares his experience in combat and also in the Army in his childhood. So we have a wide range of guests that come on here, but a lot of veterans have come this way. A lot of veterans have come on this show. After Colby, really good close friend of mine who does live close to me, Will Bledsoe, came on. Will was the first guy I ever interviewed on a podcast. He's a tattoo artist, but he is a huge advocate for men's mental health. He wrote a really good book that had a journal attached to it. And when Will came on, he just kind of shared, his testimony, his life experience. And so it's really encouraging to have men like Will in my life, and also to bring men like Will on the show to share his expertise and his experience. After Will, I had Russ Burr. He's out in Arizona. A lot of guys from Arizona are coming on the show. Russ had a unique upbringing. He was raised in a Mennonite church. So he kind of shared his experience, his journey with Christ. And one of the cool things about Russ that stood out to me was he's really into motorcycles, and he, has run with some clubs out in Arizona, but he's in a group of men that are, known from the outside as one percenters and outlaws, but he still shared the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. And I told Russ he had to write a book, because that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. So Russ is a good guy. He's out in Arizona like Jason and CJ. So he came on the show. After Russ was Xander. Xander owns a company called SDSC. He was a PJ in the Air Force, combat veteran. He was the first special operations veteran I had on the show. Xander had one of the most intense testimonies I think I've heard so far on this show. And you'll have to go and watch the episode. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but Xander, I appreciate you coming on. I was the second podcast he's ever done, and I know he's going to be on a lot of podcasts, and he's even talked about doing his own, where he travels and sets up and records podcasts. So Xander, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show. And through Xander, I've met a lot of great people. I've actually got one of his close friends coming on the show next week. Anthony's going to come on and share his testimony. After Xander, I had Tyler. Tyler runs the Antihero Broadcast. Tyler has been the biggest, probably the biggest guy I've had on the show. And I want to tell you guys that are watching this, because it's public knowledge, he's wrapped up in a BS lawsuit right now over some vet drama. But what you might hear and see on national news and on YouTube, I want to say this: Tyler is a stand-up guy. And when he was on my show, we talked a lot about the Lord. He is a Christian. He's a believer in Jesus. He follows Jesus. He is raising, he's leading his family, he's raising his kids in the Lord. So whatever you hear about him in the mainstream media, just know that everything you hear is not always true when it comes to the media. He is a solid guy, and I'm really grateful that he just even wanted to come on my little show when he's got such a huge footprint in the podcast world and on YouTube. After Tyler, I had Tyler McLean. Jason is the author of a book called One Drop of Water, and I've already shared this on an episode, but I'll say it again. Jason was the one guy that I was kind of looking for when I started my journey of sobriety. So I've been sober for over 4 years, and his book, One Drop of Water, was the first book that I picked up as I started my journey into men's mental health and also into sobriety. And he and I have become really good friends. And I'm really grateful for him. He is killing it out in the public speaking circuit. He's written more books. And he is just a solid guy who is raising awareness for mental health. And he's all the way in Canada. So I'm grateful for him. After Jason, I had Nick O'Kelly come on. Nick served as a Green Beret and as a Night Stalker. So if you know me, the Night Stalkers are really near and dear to my heart. My father was one of the original Night Stalkers in the 160th, and it was an honor to have him on. He's the author of a book called Stigma. The biggest thing about his episode is he focused really on the mental health aspect of the military, being a man, and also being a husband and a father, and what role that can play. I'm not going to share his whole testimony because I'm trying to make a quick episode tonight, but I encourage you to pick up his book, Stigma, and it's on Amazon. I think it's been out maybe a month, if I'm correct, but Nick is hitting all the major podcasts right now. So Nick, I'm grateful for your friendship and for you coming on the show. Last night, I had Michael Morgan, who is the host of the Resilient Warrior Nation podcast. Mike served as a police officer for 30 years. He came on the show and we talked about mental health in the first responder role, mental health as a man, how to overcome father wounds. We talked a little bit about church hurt. And then Mike got into the psychedelic piece of recovery from PTSD. So it was a really insightful episode. I encourage you to go and watch that. That being said, guys, this is still a new podcast, but I have tonight doesn't really count because I didn't have a guest show up, but I've got 17 episodes lined up from tonight until Christmas. My goal is to spread as much awareness as possible for men's mental health and also the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's not enough guys out there that are speaking up, that are, really expressing the importance of men's mental health. So I'm hoping that this show will inspire other men to take that first step, to work on themselves, to be a leader for their family, to be the dad that their kids deserve. And if they're not a husband or not a father, it will help them learn lessons that they can apply to their everyday life. And if they get to that point to where they get married and have kids, or if they just are in a long-term relationship, learn what a real man is, not what we were taught as kids and not what the media portrays a real man to be. But that being said, this podcast is not just for men. I have 2 ladies that are going to come on the show, and they are both going to share their testimony. And just to let you guys know, I've had a few women reach out to express their gratitude because it helps them understand what we as men go through, how hard it is for us to work on ourselves, and how much shame, how much grief, and how much guilt some of us carry because of childhood trauma, because of work experiences, whether we've served as first responders or served in the military. So I'm going to be bringing on a couple ladies before the end of the year to share their testimony. So I highly encourage you guys to stay tuned and catch those episodes. As I sum this up and come to a close here, I want to say thank you to my girl, Shelly. Shelly encouraged me to continue after my first endeavor as a podcaster started to fall apart. When my old partner decided to walk away without any notice, I was on the verge of giving up. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I didn't have the experience when it came to, editing and what service to use as far as a podcast streaming service. And she just encouraged me. She's been a solid support system for me
And I just want to say thank you, because without her, the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast would not exist, because I would have quit. I would have gave up. But, you know, guys, I'm here. I'm rolling. I'm working as hard as I can to get new content out, to work on episodes. So if you follow along on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, thank you for sharing the reels and the posts that I put out. And I do clips from episodes. And thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. The show is also available on Spotify, same name, Peace, Power, and Purpose Podcast. Thank you guys very much. God bless you, and take care.